There seems to be a bit of a trend to make Rice Krispie cakes, so I thought I'd have a go. And this time round I'm going to make a spooky Halloween themed graveyard with chocolate tombstones, some chocolate bats flying around, and a Rice Krispie based graveyard, which will basically be coloured green, flavoured with marshmallows. So in my bowl here I have 5 cups of Rice Krispies. Now this cup here holds about 250 millilitres. I've got 2 bags here, so I only need 300 grams of marshmallows. Stick of butter. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take about 50 grams. That's about that much. So what I'm going to do is just chop that off. It's unsalted butter, is what I want. The rest can go back in the fridge. I have some food writing icing, white, red and black. I've got 2 colours. If I fancy making some pumpkins, I've got orange, and here I've got a green one, and the green is going to be the grass coloured Rice Krispie dye that I want to make my graveyard. I've got a heavy base saucepan in the background. I've got some spray oil, which I'm going to basically spray onto a tin. And what we're going to do, we're going to melt the butter in a saucepan, add the marshmallows, 300 grams. Once the marshmallows are melted, we're going to add in our Rice Krispies and stir. And when we're doing that, we're going to add in our green colour dye, and that should turn the whole mixture a nice vivid green colour. This is all going to be fairly quick once it's all mixed. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to spray my tray. Now that's about 15 inches, probably by about 13. And the reason I've picked this one is because it's fairly shallow. You see these other people making big thick wedges, 2 or 3 inches thick. I think that's a little bit too much. These are quite rich. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to thin it out on a thinner tray. On my hob, I've melted the butter in a heavy base saucepan, and what I'm going to do now, I'm going to add the marshmallows, 300 grams of marshmallows. They should melt fairly quickly, and what we're trying to achieve is a nice gooey consistency before we add in our Rice Krispies. Our marshmallows have melted enough now to actually put our Rice Krispies in. So we'll slowly start adding these in. We'll give our Rice Krispies a coat before we add some more. Try and get it all off the sides. And what we're going to do now, while we're here, is put 3 or 4 drops of our green food extract. And we're going to give it a big stir. When you put food colour into anything, it's fairly concentrated, so you only need a few drops, otherwise it'll be too dark for the colour you want. I want a consistency a bit like grass. And the easy thing is probably the fold method, which is get under the food, bring it up, bring it around, so like I'm trying to do here, bring it over, try and coat everything. Now this is the sort of colour I'm after, and it's quite sticky now, so what I'm trying to do, or what I'm going to do, is actually put it into my tray that I've sprayed. So here's the tray that I sprayed. I'll turn it off the hob, and all I'm going to do is basically spoon all of this out. Press it down fairly firm. Get some wax-proof paper. Press it down. Once you've got it pressed out to your desired thickness, which is roughly what I want to achieve here, about a centimetre sort of thick. Just leave it aside to chill. I'm going to put mine in the fridge. So this is my Rice Krispie cake, just brought out of the fridge. What I'm going to do, I'm going to try and turn it out now. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to make melted chocolate and pipe that into the shape of a tombstone. And we're going to line the edge here with some melted chocolate and stick a tombstone on the side of it. I've decided to use some lolly sticks and I'm just poking these into the base of my squares, and we'll decorate them in a minute. There we go. So what I've decided to do, I've decided to make the longer, thinner ones my graveyards. And on the spare at a moment, I'm going to make some Frankenstein heads with the squares, as I've got the melted chocolate there. And the skewers will actually help me pick them up and be able to decorate them. And we'll put them back in the fridge to set. On a piece of paper, I've traced out shapes for bats, tombstones. You can see under the greaseproof paper here. What I've done, I've taped the greaseproof paper and the paper underneath to one of my old thin chopping boards. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to melt some chocolate, and then what we're going to do, we're going to trace around the shape in chocolate, and then on top of that, once it's dried, I'm going to draw some eyes or draw an RIP, and the various shapes I've got are tombstones, little crosses, and hopefully when we get the Rice Krispies out of the fridge, once it's set, what we'll do, we'll take the cooled chocolate, we'll peel it off of this greaseproof paper, we'll use some of the melted chocolate we're going to melt. We're going to score along the base with the melted chocolate and stick it onto the green Rice Krispie graveyard that we're creating. There's your chocolate. Break your chocolate up and put it into a bowl. I've got my chocolate melting in a bowl over a lightly filled saucepan. Now this bowl is not touching the water, otherwise it will burn the chocolate. While our chocolate's melting, it's reached a nice little consistency here, it's quite thick. What we're going to do, we're just going to take some of that chocolate before it goes all grainy and horrible. We're just going to make some hair for our Frankenstein. And all we're going to do is basically coat the thing in chocolate, and hopefully it'll look like he has hair. Right, I'm happy with the consistency of the chocolate, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take it from the bowl, put it into a piping bag, and we're going to use this to pipe out some tombstones. What I'm going to do now is take a little toothpick, and what we're going to do is just flatten our chocolate out. And once it's chilled, we can peel these off and stick them to our rice cakes and decorate them with RIP with our pen, our icing pen. Now our Rice Krispies hardened up a little bit, and the chocolate we dabbed on for the hair is actually hardened too. All we need to do now is do some scary faces on it. I'm using black writing icing pen. I find it easier to control, and all we need to do is just press at the end, do some little triangles for the eyes. So my chocolate's hardened, my tombstones. Pull one off just to make sure. And what I'm going to do now is just write on here RIP. Actually turn that over and do it, makes it easier. Now what we need to do now is use our white icing and our green grass to take one of these. All we're going to do is put some icing along the bottom and stick it on our Rice Krispies.